Hello everybody, welcome to the grounded stick practice. I'm Leo Diaz, and today in this episode we're going to talk about the principle of spiral or rotational movements. When people think about rotations, they often imagine one part of the body turning. The shoulders rotate, the trunk twists, the hips move, but real movement is rarely that isolated. The body is built to transfer movements from one area to another. The feet influence the ankles. The ankles affect the knees. The knees respond to the hips, and the hips organize the trunk. This creates something more than a simple turn. It creates a spiral. A spiral is one of the most important principles inside movements. We see it when we walk, when we throw, when we change directions, when we strike, even when we reach across the body. But many people lose this quality because they try to create rotations from one isolated area. They force the shoulders. They twist the lower back. Today, I want to explore one of the fundamental movements of grounded stick practice. A movement that looks simple from the outside, but inside it teaches us how rotation travels through the whole body. So let's observe the movement together. I begin in a wide standing position. The feet are placed wider than the shoulders, giving me enough space to rotate without losing balance. I hold the stick horizontally behind my neck. Both arms remain extended along the stick. Before I move, I take a moment to organize my body. I feel the contact of both feet with the ground. I become aware of my ankles. I soften the knees. I allow the hips to remain available. I lengthen the spine, and I notice whether I am carrying unnecessary tensions in the shoulders or neck. This preparation is important. I do not want to begin the movement from a disconnected or unstable position. I want the body to be ready to respond as a one system. From here, I begin to rotate toward one side. But I'm not simply turning the shoulders. The movement begins from the relationship between the feet and the ground. As I rotate, one foot receives more pressure. The ankle responds. The knee changes directions slightly. The hip begins to turn. The trunk follows. And the shoulders continue the movement through the stick. The stick helps create a clear frame across the upper body. I can feel if the arms are trying to create the rotations alone. I can also notice if the spine is collapsing or if I am losing balance. I continue the movement toward the outside of one's shoulders. Then, instead of stopping completely, I allow the movement to return through the center. The momentum carries gently towards the opposite side. The pressure shifts across the feet. The knees and hips reorganize. The trunk changes direction, and the sticks travel smoothly towards the other shoulder. The movement becomes continuous, but the center is not at dead positions. The goal is not to move as far as possible. The goal is not to force the stick behind the body. The goal is to keep the posture, balance, and connections while the direction changes. A spiral is different from a simple twist. When we twist, we often imagine one area rotating against another. But a spiral travels. It moves through the whole body. It connects several joints and tissues into one continuous pattern. This is important because the body does not create force from isolated parts. Force is transferred. The ground gives us something to push against. The feet receive that pressure. The legs and hips redirect it. The trunk carries it. And the upper body expresses the final movement. If I rotate only for one shoulder, the movement feels restricted. The arm works too hard. The neck may become tense, and the lower body stops participating. But when the movement begins through the ground and travels through the whole system, the rotation becomes smoother. It feels lighter. And the body can change directions with less unnecessary tensions. This is also where the knees and ankle become important. People often think rotation belongs only to the hips and spine, but the lower joints must adapt as well. The foot changes pressure. The ankle responds to the shift. The knee follows the directions of the hips. This small adjustment allows rotation to travel safely through the body. If the feet remain rigid or disconnected, the rotations have nowhere to go. The body may compensate by twisting more through the lower back or shoulders, so the spiral is not created by one joint, it emerges from cooperation. Momentum is another important part of this practice. Sometimes people hear the word momentum and assume means losing control. But controlling momentum is part of the natural movement. When I rotate to one side and return, I do not completely stop and restart the movement. I allow some of the energy from one direction to help initiate the next. This creates rhythm. It also teaches the body how to receive and redirect energy. I'm not throwing the body from one side to side. I should still be able to feel the ground. I should still be able to control the stick and also able to stop at any moment. This is how I know I'm guiding the momentum instead of being controlled by it. This quality is very useful beyond the stick practice. Walking, use momentum. Running, use momentum. Throwing, use momentum. Martial movements, use momentum. The important skill is not eliminating it. The skill is learning how to organize it. I've seen the spiral principle reveal something important about movement. We often try to improve by adding more efforts, more range, more speed, more power. But sometimes the body does not need more force. It needs better connections. When one part of the body works alone, the movement becomes heavier. When the parts cooperate, the same movement can feel easier and more powerful. This is one of the reasons why I value simple practices. A simple movement gives us enough space to observe. We can feel where the rotation begins. We can notice whether the hips are participating. We can sense whether the knees and ankles are adapting. We can recognize whether the shoulders are leading too early, and we can learn to move with less unnecessary tension. The movement may be simple. That is where the practice becomes deeper. This movement is one of the fundamental elements of ground stick practice. Not because it is complicated, but because it teaches a principle that appears throughout the whole method, the spiral. The ability to let rotation travel through the body, from the ground, through the feet, into the ankles and knees, through the hips and trunk, and finally into the shoulders, arm, and stick. The goal is not to twist further. The goal is to remain organized while the body changes directions. Do not force the rotations. Create the conditions for it to travel. Do not isolate the shoulders. Allow the body to participate. And do not only turn from side to side. Learn how to move through the spiral. Don't collect exercises. Build understanding. This is grounded stick practice. Move better, feel stronger, stay grounded.